Hi guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. So, not only has the London E-Prix come to a close, but also the season, crowning Pascal Wehrlein as Season 10's Formula E World Champion. Congratulations to him, a deserved championship. Mr. Consistency throughout this season. Even when races weren't looking to go his way, he was still able to pick up a few points here and there, and that all counted at the end of the day to what netted him his first Formula E World Championship. And congratulations, it was definitely well deserved. So, not only do we have a Formula E champion crowned, we have to crown a Crawl Corner champion now, don't we? Will it be Pascal Wehrlein? Will it be someone completely different? We're about to find out, aren't we? So, if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their overall race weekend's performance. I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look at the bonus points. They're sometimes an offer for some drivers to do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion, I do award minus points to those drivers to do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Corner standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Wow, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. There's so much to play for. There's so much that happened in that race. Yes, there's certainly a lot to talk about, a lot to sink us teeth into, and in the end we'll see who comes out on top. But there's a lot of drivers in the mix going into this final stage of the Crawl Corner Championship. So without further ado, then let's kick things off with the race winner, shall we? Shall we? Ollie Rowland. His home Grand Prix, his home E-Prix, I should say, and he nets himself a victory after what was a difficult first race. Got himself a lotter of the week in that one. Took Da Costa out, bit of an overzealous move, but this time around, drove controlled, drove measured, drove smart. He knew there was a championship on the line for everyone else. He knew that he was going to go for glory at the end of the year. What could have been had he been at Portland? What could have been? That first race in particular in the Portland E-Prix where none of the championship protagonists hardly picked up any points. That could have been one hand on the trophy for him in that situation because he was well in the mix up until that doubleheader. So yeah, very frustrating for him, but nonetheless, he ends this season on a high. Really drove so well, drove so smart. He let the championship protagonists fight with each other, and then when he knew, then he got behind the likes of Nick Cassidy, got behind the trio, didn't he? Nick Cassidy, of course, had taken his 2 attack modes. Pascal Wehrlein and Mitch Evans hadn't, so when they took theirs, he got himself through into the lead. Then he knew Pascal Wehrlein wasn't going to fight him because where he was, that was the championship decided for him in that position. So Ollie Rowland really recovered from yesterday, did a great job in doing so, and ending the season on a high for himself and Nissan, where at one point they couldn't finish anywhere but the podium. After missing Portland and a tough first race in London, he's back to fine form with a victory to end the year. It's 11 points from me. 11 to Ollie Rowland for a stunning drive. Played his cards right, played them well, knew when to pick his battles and when to pick his fights, and he got himself that well-earned victory at the final round of the season. 11 to Ollie Rowland. In second place, we come to the newly crowned Formula E World Champion. That is Pascal Wehrlein. Congratulations on the championship, Pascal. And congratulations on not losing your head, on not getting things wrong. He just played a measured and controlled drive. Didn't get flustered. This is the key. Didn't get flustered whilst in combat with his championship protagonist. He let the race come to him, and that's exactly what happened. He didn't look to be in a championship winning position at any point really in that race until Mitch Evans missed that last attack mode. Then it meant that he got ahead of him after that attack mode was activated at last by Mitch Evans by taking the additional loop. So, you know, Pascal Wehrlein really just didn't get frustrated by the situation. Cassidy was getting frustrated when he really didn't need to. Evans was getting flustered and was more focused on Cassidy than he sent to do about Pascal Wehrlein. It's almost like the Jaguars forgot that Wehrlein existed in this championship campaign, and that played dividends in Pascal Wehrlein's attack at the end there because, like I say, he didn't look to be in a championship winning position at any point in that race until the last couple of laps. Once Evans missed that attack mode, that was it. It was championship on for Pascal Wehrlein, and he delivered it well. So Pascal Wehrlein, a perfect 10 from me. What a great drive, great qualifying, great race. kept himself in the fight, didn't get flustered like we saw the others over the team radio, and ultimately kept his head cool, and that is what netted him the title this weekend. Congratulations, Pascal Wehrlein. 10 points to you. Securing third place and missing out on the title challenge, it is Mitch Evans. And there we have it, Lotterer of the Week to Mitch Evans, because he sent more bothered about Nick Cassidy in this title fight than he did about Pascal Wehrlein. He didn't look at the bigger picture at all that race, did he? They were trying to do teamwork and team orders. It wasn't going to happen when you're in a championship battle with your teammate. We knew that. But as it was, he played the team game for starters, which is Nick Cassidy went for the attack mode, but then Evans was hoping that he would take the lead and Cassidy would filter him behind. But when Cassidy came out ahead of him, that's when he said, hang on a minute, lads, what's happening here? Shouldn't I have been behind? And he said, no, the first attack mode, Cassidy was going to be ahead. And he went, that's not fair. And then the second attack mode happened for Cassidy, where he went in and he came out again. It was a little bit more of a scrappy fight at that point, but still Cassidy came out ahead. And then he just came over the radio, gloves are off. He lost his head in that moment. He was too busily focused on what Nick Cassidy was doing. He didn't take any of the attack modes. He didn't listen to the team at that point. They told him to take an attack earlier in the stages of the race, and he said, no, gloves are off, I'm doing what I want to do now. And that just allowed Nick Cassidy to sit on the bumper of Evans and Wehrlein and just follow him around. It looked like Cassidy was in a really strong position at that point. Obviously then, as we know, it all went wrong for Cassidy. And Mitch Evans, all he had to do was take the attack mode, like Pascal Wehrlein did, and he missed the loop. He missed one of the zones. He missed the first one going in on entry, and that meant that when he had to go and take it again, came out behind Pascal Wehrlein, and not only that, but he didn't have enough time left on the clock to actually finish the attack mode before crossing the line if they were continuing at the pace that they were at. So he had to heavily slow down, reduce his speed, defend like crazy. That was it. Title over. So, title over for Mitch Evans, and a Lotterer of the Week to round his season out as well, unfortunately. Mitch Evans has been great this season. He had a slow start, he had a sluggish start to the season, plenty of mistakes, but from Monaco onwards, he has delivered some really impressive results, some impressive drives, and this time around, I feel he was just too focused on Nick Cassidy that he missed the bigger picture of the overall title itself, and Pascal Wehrlein grabbed it with both hands when that happened. So yeah, Mitch Evans, a Lotterer of the Week to him for missing out on the title when he could have easily won it. Finishing in fourth place, we come to Sebastian Buemi after qualifying all the way down in P17, somewhere around there, wasn't he? He drove a really, really strong drive. It's difficult to kind of work out what happened with these cars, unfortunately, because rightfully so, we were focused up front, where the top three protagonists were 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 4 very briefly in the early stages of the race, but they were driving really well, weren't they? And they thoroughly deserved the recognition of the telly time that they got, which meant that we kind of missed out on what happened with Buemi's, but it looked like he kind of took the attack modes at the right time, benefited from the collisions and shunts that happened ahead. Once again, there was a little bit of carnage and chaos in the latter stages of the race that he was able to benefit from, and just got himself into fourth place after a great strategic drive. So he's getting 9 points from me. It's not a podium like he had last time out, but once again delivering a strong result for Envision. I think this helps him in the constructors standings as well, going ahead of, could it be McLaren? Or were they already ahead of McLaren? Either way, they're either ahead of McLaren or they're definitely ahead of them anyway. But yeah, it was a great drive. Where's this pace suddenly come from? France, we saw it in Portland. This time around, we've seen it with Buemi. But a great drive by Sebastian Buemi to get himself P4. And, strong points for the team. 9 points to Sebastian Buemi. Securing fifth place and another strong result for the DS Penske squad, it is Jean-Eric Vergne. Well done to him. Again, kind of like an Ollie Rowland situation. Recovered what he did wrong in the first race. Got it all right in the second race. Finishing P5. Good effort. Good effort indeed. Finishing just behind Sebastian Buemi. And the title protagonist, of course, ahead, which is fine. I don't think there's much more he could do. Again, unfortunately, I've even watched the race back a few times as well to try, and this is why this video is a bit later than the others. I've tried to watch this race back a few times now and try and see where it all happened for these drivers and how they gained, but sadly we didn't see because of, obviously, again, rightfully so, watching the title fight. So he did well, though. He drove well. P5. great points for DS Penske. Ends the season on a high. He has been a really strong candidate this year as Jean-Eric Vergne for delivering some great drives, some impressive performances, and being very consistent. He's almost like Pascal Wehrlein-esque this season of being consistent, picking up a few points here and there, but the big points haven't come readily enough for him to be a title campaign candidate. But that being said, Vergne this weekend finishes P5. I think he crossed the line P6, didn't he? But De Costa got a penalty, so we'll come to that in a moment. But yeah, Jean-Eric Vergne, 8 points to him for that. Great drive, solid job, well done Jean-Eric Vergne. A great season this season by him. Securing 6th place, another 6th place. We come to Nico Muller in the Abt Cupra. Now, this means that they have re-overtaken Mahindra now. After all of Mahindra's hard effort and hard work in that first race to get the points all over Abt Cupra, they lost it all this race, sadly, and Muller has picked up a solid P6 finish there. Well done to him for that. It's 10 points to him. Again, didn't see much of his race, but drove really, really strong once again. He's rumoured to be going to another team. Has he already signed for another team? I know he's leaving Abt anyway. And he's rumoured to be entering another stage of his career. There were big talks, of course, earlier part of this season of De Costa being dropped by Porsche and him going there. So whoever picks him up will be a great asset. These last few rounds prove it by Nico Muller. The Abt Cupra car hasn't been the strongest this season, but again, like last season, picked up towards the end of the season. But still, you know, great effort. Well done, Abt Cupra. Congratulations on you securing 9th in the standings. Doesn't sound that impressive, but what a great effort it has been by him. Nico Muller's picked up something like 50 odd points, which is like 50 more than his teammate. So that's crazy in itself, isn't it? So yeah, Nico Muller, a perfect 10. It has to be, doesn't it? Another storming drive and secured Abt Cupra that 9th place in the Constructors. Then we come to Robin Freitz in the second of the Envisions. It's the first time in a long time, I think, that the both Envisions have scored points. You know, this consistently is crazy. We either have one car up there and one car well down, or no cars nowhere. But this time around, both respectable finishing positions here, P7 and P4. Good effort Envision. Robin Freitz didn't drive as well as his teammate, obviously, because at the end of the day, Buemi finished ahead of him, but still picked up some crucial points for Envision to end the season on a moderate high, I would say. They're not going to be jumping up and down for joy. It's a season very much of what could have been for the Envision squad, but at least they end it celebrating some good points, a podium last race out as well, and a couple of podiums in Portland as well. So they'll be reasonably happy with how the end of the season went. They're reasonably happy with how the beginning of the season went. They're just not happy with that big bit in the middle, sadly. So for Robin Freitz, I have gone for a solid 7. Solid 7 to Robin Freitz for that. I think he's driven well this weekend overall. We couldn't really see what he was capable of in the first race, sadly. But judging by this race pace, he had pace for points all weekend long, which is a good effort in itself. And it's a solid 7. So Robin Freitz for that. Next up, we come to Stoffel van Dorn in the second of the DS Penskes. Again, disqualified on the cruel corner anyway, sadly, so he's ineligible to score any more points from me. But once again, in the shadow of his teammate, Jean-Eric Vergne. It's a shame to say. Rumoured to be going to Maserati next year, which would be an interesting choice, if I've got that right. It's definitely rumoured to be on the grid anyway, but I don't think he's going to be with DS Penske. But yeah, it's just been a difficult couple of seasons since joining the DS Penske squad, hasn't it? But yeah, couple of points. Decent enough, I suppose, but once again, in the shadow of his teammate, Jean-Eric Vergne. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Lucas Di Grassi here in P9, crossing the line P10, of course. Elevator to P9. That doubles his points tally for the season. He was on 2, he got himself 3, he got himself another cheeky one there, and then a late post-race penalty for Da Costa means he gets a cheeky 2. So he's doubled his points tally from 2 to 4 with this result. Crucial for the Abt squad to be able to get these points on the board and re-overtake Mahindra. They don't win them out by much. Every point was crucial. Di Grassi's 4 points have certainly helped contribute towards what they needed to overhaul the Mahindra squad and stay well ahead of the ERT squad as well. But look at how many Nico Muller scored. 51, 52 points, something like that. He's only scored 4. Yeah, that's not good, is it? You could have had another driver in that car scoring 50 odd, and then you'd have been ahead of the likes of the Envisions, you'd have been ahead of the likes of McLaren, you'd have been a lot closer to the likes of Andretti. So yeah, it's a case of what could have been for Di Grassi this season, and maybe what could have been for the Cupra squad as well. Di Grassi, I'm giving him a 6.5. I don't think he deserves penalising, despite the fact he has had a really shocking season. This race in particular, he picks up some points. Fair enough. But yeah, for the most part, it is a case of what could have been this season for him and what could have been for the Cupra squad. I think I said at the start of the year that he could be their saving grace. Well, he hasn't. He's been more of a hindrance, sadly. But yeah, 6.5 to Di Grassi. Ends a really tough season on a somewhat moderate high, if you can even call it that. At least it was points. Securing the final points paying position in P10, we do, of course, come to Jake Hughes in the first of the McLarens. Jake this season ends it off difficult, didn't he? His maiden podium in China was very much the highlight. Since then, it's ebbed and flowed away from him once again, struggling to score points, getting involved in silly tussles and butt fights and battles. Yeah, it's been just a bit of a shame, hasn't it? Top to bottom, really, for him this season. As mentioned, linked to be going to the Maserati squad next year, having a change of scenery, a change of colour of car. Maybe that can give him the reset he needs. He's certainly had a difficult second season, but not as difficult as the likes of Sasha Fenestraz anyway, that's for sure. And I scored him a Miller 05. Miller 05 to Jake Hughes. His race could have gone a lot better, I feel. I think there could have been a top 5 in that car. Once again, the chaoticness of this race, like yesterday's race, could have netted anyone a podium, really. This time around, the championship protagonists looked to be sorted out front, but the rest of the pack, P5 downwards, looked like they could have been on for some good results, but just scraping a point as a result of a penalty late on, not great. Miller 05 to Jake Hughes. Finishing P11, we come to Sergio Sette Camara in the first of the ERTs, the ERTs. Sadly for Sette Camara, even a post-race penalty couldn't elevate himself into the points, just missing out by a single point. Yeah, it's a shame that, P11 in the end, couldn't quite get that one final point, but it wouldn't have made any difference to ERT's standings. Yeah, they had a great little phase in the middle there, didn't they, where they were picking up points here and there, particularly with Sette Camara getting a couple of 9th, a 10th, an 8th. Did really well, but then sadly for them, just tailed away. And P11 here is something that's sort of celebrated, but a season of what could have been once again by them. They need some heavily investment in that funding team. That team just needs some good injection of cash in it just to be able to develop the car. There's something there. There is potential there, but it's just few and far between. Sette Camara gives a solid 7 from me. Great way to end his season with a P11, crossing the line P12. Can't be expected to do anything more than that in an incredibly inefficient powertrain. And yeah, 7 to Sette Camara. See where he ends up next year. ERT, maybe we'll be looking to retain him. He's done a great job this season. It's almost like Sette Camara and Dan Tinkton have swapped places this year based on how they were both last year. But yeah, Sette Camara for now. A solid 7 to him to round out his Cruel Corner Championship. Then we come to the first of the Andrettis in Norman Nato. Yeah, not a great race at all by him, unfortunately, was it? Got involved in some silly skirmishes again, I think, if I remember rightly. Lack of pace, no pace at all. Qualified quite low down again. Typical of the Andrettis over a single lap, unfortunately. Yeah, nowhere near the points. He did, I think he got involved in a squabble, didn't he? Looking back on it, I think there was some sort of skirmish that he got himself involved in once again. So not great. I've given him 2 anyway. Giving him 2. Not good to be finishing behind the likes of an ERT. Certainly not. So yes, Norman Nato, 2 to him. Probably lucky he didn't get a lotterer. I think he was on a final warning as well, so definitely dodged a bullet there. But yeah, Norman Nato, the less said the better. As I mentioned in yesterday's episode, for those that didn't watch it, the commentary was a little bit strange, a little bit peculiar, saying, he's looking for a job because he doesn't want to continue or doesn't wish to continue with the Andretti squad into next season. So have Andretti offered him and he's not accepted? Does that mean he's going elsewhere? Does that mean he's in the shop window? Does that mean he wants to do something different entirely? I'm not too sure. But Norman Nato, it's been an up and down season for him this year, sadly. Couldn't string some solid results together, but got some odd good glimmers of hope once again. It's 2 for now, though, to Norman Nato, ending Andretti's season on a bit of a dud. Next up, we come to Antonio Felix da Costa in the second of the Porsches. And there we have it. Lotterer of the Week 2, Antonio Felix da Costa. After crossing the line in P5, demoted by a 5-second time penalty, takes him well outside the points and costs Porsche the Manufacturers' Trophy, a new introduction to this season. So you have the drivers, the constructors, and the Manufacturers' Trophy. Now, where he finished in P5 meant that he succeeded and got enough points to overall Jaguar in the Manufacturers' Trophies. So this is for Porsche powertrain vehicles, all of them together combined, which is your Andretti's, you know, your Porsches, and that's it. And the Jaguars, of course, which are Jaguar and Envision. So, yeah, you know, that's how it works, the Manufacturers' Trophy. Him losing these 10 points means that Jaguar gets that title and not Porsche. That's an interesting one. However, he did take out Nick Cassidy, didn't he? So there you go. That's, of course, the reason why he gets the penalty and why he gets Lotterer of the Week from me, because he did cost Nick Cassidy the title when he was in such a strong position. Da Costa went for a lunge, didn't really want to overtake Cassidy. He was trying to overtake Ollie Rowland. Got it up the inside of Rowland, then hit the back of Nick Cassidy, giving him a rear puncture. And that was game over for Cassidy and game over for his title hopes. So yes, Antonio Felix da Costa ends the season with a Lotterer of the Week after what has been a storming drive for him these last few races. It all comes undone here in London. Then we come to Dan Tinctum in the second of the ERTs, the ERTs. I don't really know what to be said, to be honest, I'm afraid. It's... yeah, just been a difficult season overall for Dan Tinctum, hasn't it? I think he was on a final warning as well. He's certainly not had a great season. Once again, outshone by his teammate. It's a Miller 05 from me. I've been a bit generous there. I don't see why I should chuck him out at the end just for the sake of it. He didn't do anything unduly wrong. He got caught up in the Sam Bird incident that he was an innocent victim of as well, wasn't he? So, you know, he was just very much in the wrong place at the wrong time with that one. Lost him a few places. That's fair enough, you know, but the rest of the season has just been very, very awful. I wonder where he'll end up next year. I don't know, question marks over that one, to be honest, but we'll see. But yeah, Dan Tinctum, Miller 05 to end his season off with, and it has been a very tough season indeed. Next up we come to Sasha Fenestraz in the second of the Nissans, disqualified on the crawl room as of yesterday. So that's a shame for him. So he can't score any more points, but being all the way down here and his teammate takes a victory, once again proves how difficult his season has been. Nissan, I believe, have expressed their interest in not keeping him, which I don't fault and I don't blame, and I don't think anyone's really going to be on the market for him based on how he's been this season. There hasn't been any sort of flashes of brilliance that I can remember. I know we had the crazy Mazzano race, didn't he, where I think he finished P5, and that has very much been the highlight of his season. Every other race he's rarely struggled to score points. So yeah, Sasha Fenestraz, unfortunately for me, is disqualified on the crawl corner anyway, and it has been a very, very, very difficult second year. Last of the runners, we come to Nick de Vries in the Mahindra. What a shame for Nick de Vries. What a shame indeed. After everything he did in that first race, securing P4, a storming drive, this race around, I've no idea what happened to him, but we never saw him really elevate himself anywhere from above like the P14 sort of area. Not that I can remember anyway. He didn't seem to really get in the zone, get in the game really. And unfortunately ends the season on a bit of a lull, a bit of a dull spot, sadly. Yeah, I don't want to criticise De Vries for this race in particular. It was, like I say, it was always difficult to see what was happening at any other stage of the race apart from the leaders. But Nick de Vries, after an encouraging drive there, he had some great pace in Portland as well, and he didn't quite come through, did it, or deliver. Especially in that second race, I think he got a puncture, didn't he? This time around, the first race, of course, did a great drive. This time around, very much absent. So yeah, unfortunate for De Vries. It's 3 points from me anyway. Ends the season on a bit of a lull. It's been a difficult return to Formula E. Of course, he's been getting used to the Gen 3 cars despite not being a rookie. It was his first time in the Gen 3 era. Every other driver, apart from Daravala, had a season over him with the Gen 3 cars. So has played its part in certain phases, but he hasn't delivered the results I was expecting towards the latter half of the season until just these last couple of races. But it might be a little bit too little too late. I think he's going to be staying with Mahindra into next season because I think he signed a multi-year deal with them. And I think they're good to keep him. I think they're right to keep him because he has had some good pace, showed some good pace, but just often fell short. 3 to De Vries anyway. Difficult race to end the season on, but encouraging signs potentially going into next season if he retains with Mahindra. Then we come to the list of DNFs in the race. So the first on this list, the last to retire in the race, is of course Nick Cassidy. What a shame, Nick. What a shame. It's very much like last season, isn't it? His teammate Buemi took him out last season. Such a clumsy incident, knocking his front wing off. This time around, it was Evans and Cassidy having a bit of a squabble and a minor fallout over the team radios, and just got hit and taken out by an errant Antonio Felix da Costa, giving Cassidy a puncture. Such a shame, such a shame. So yeah, for Nick Cassidy, I've scored him a middle of row 5. It's a shame to see his title chances come to an end like this once again. 2 seasons in a row where he's taken out in an incident that is not his fault, and having shenanigans with a teammate as well. That repeats itself from last year, and Buemi last year wasn't even in the championship fight. So yeah, big shame. Big shame. There's not really much more I can add to that other than just poor Cassidy. Poor Cassidy. 5 to him, maximum I can score a retirement, and that's the end of that. Then we come to Maxi Gunter, another unfortunate DNF retirement here after qualifying himself in P2. So last race he had a gearbox failure whilst running P2 with just a few laps left to go. This race he was riding round inside the top 5 quite comfortably. Cassidy had the puncture ahead. He tried to squeeze himself into the pit lane. They all sort of concertinaed up round that final corner as Cassidy was sort of like crabbing it, trying to get it into the pits. They had a tangle, they had a touch, they had a tup, they had a bang, and it broke the front wing and front suspension of Maxi Gunter's car, sadly, in that incident that wasn't really his fault. There was a very slow-moving car all of a sudden in front of a pile of cars that were all fighting each other. And once again, the Maserati squad and Maxi Gunter turn out absolutely luckless in that situation and end up out of the race as a result. Big shame. It's a maximum of 5 for a retirement to Maxi Gunter as well, which is the same he got yesterday. We could have been looking at 2 P2 finishes there from Maxi Gunter easily, especially when the title rivals were squabbling there towards the end, Evans and Verline. You know, they had to focus on other drivers and not just themselves. So, yeah, what a shame. What a shame for Maxi Gunter. 5 to him. Ends the season promisingly, but no points on the board. Then we come to Maxi Gunter's teammate, Jahan Daruvala. It seems like a repeat of yesterday. Deja vu. Unfortunately, once again, an innocent victim in a collision. He got absolutely harpooned and wiped out by Sam Bird this time around in the McLaren. Ripped his rear wing off, but not just that, the whole of the rear crash box and crash structure was dangling on the floor. Even if they cut it off, they can't restart the race without a rear crash structure, so they were out, I'm afraid. And that is a great shame for Jahan Daruvala, who was once again running around on merit on the fringes of the top 10. It was a little bit early in the race to say whether he would have stayed there, but based on yesterday's performance, it could have done easily. You know, he was running around inside the top 10 comfortably all day in yesterday's race. This time around, it was just a shame, wasn't it? Just a shame. Taken out too soon, not his fault, and out of the race. So for Jahan Daruvala, I've given him 4. 4 out of a maximum of 5 to him. Didn't do as good a job as his teammate in qualifying and was wiped out early in the race, so we couldn't judge his full potential. But I think points would have been easily possible once again for Jahan, and an ending a season that could have been on a high there with 2 double points finishes to end his season. It instead ends up with damage in the wall and no points collected due to no fault of his own on either occasion. 4 to Daruvala. Next up we come to Sam Bird in the second of the McLarens. And there we have it, of course. It had to be a lotterer of the week to Sam Bird for mentioning already taking out Jahan Daruvala, taking himself out of the race and severely injuring the likes of Dan Tinkton. Norman Nato got briefly caught up in that incident as well, taking avoiding action and struggling there. So yeah, unfortunately for them, they were all tangled up in an incident that was very much Sam Bird's fault. Got a little bit too ambitious, saw that cars ahead were jostling and jockeying for position. He thought, I'll have a slice of that pie, dove it up the inside of Jahan, time, tagged him, spun him and spat him into the wall and spat him into a retirement as well as himself, and in interfering with another couple of cars race as well. So, yeah, Lottery of the Week to Sam Bird, ends his season on a very much a low point. Yeah, after what was an encouraging victory early in the season, but it just never materialised from there, did it? Which is what we've said throughout a lot of seasons here. His Jaguar time, he had a podium, he had another podium, then he was in the wall taking his teammate out. At least he's not taking his teammate out this year, but still, it's been a very patchy season for Sam Bird and ends it once again on a low. Next up, we come to Jake Dennis in the second of the Andrettis. And of course, it had to be rounding out his season with a double Lotterer of the Week. He gets a Lotterer here from me once again, Jake Dennis. I mean, he just killed one car this time and killed himself as well in the process, slamming into the side of Eduardo Mortara at turn 2, and then that broke Mortara's steering, so Mortara couldn't turn for turn 3. So as Jake turned left, Mortara couldn't, hit him in the side. They both went off and crashed into turn 3 on the exit wall. Fantastic stuff. All on Jake Dennis once again, driving like a lunatic, driving like he doesn't have mirrors, driving like he doesn't have eyes, to be honest with you. It was ridiculous. So yeah, Jake Dennis ends a season on such a low, such a downturn. You know, yesterday he was a madman. Today he probably was going to be doing more of the same. However, he managed to take himself and a fellow competitor out at the same time. So at least Mortara knew he could do no more damage to anyone else's race. But that is not what Mortara needed and not what Jake Dennis needed this race. And yeah, Jake Dennis very much ends his season on a low. And last but by no means least, we do of course come to Eduardo Mortara, sadly caught up in the tangle and shenanigans with Jake Dennis, as already mentioned. So around the outside of turn 2, Mortara went, Jake Dennis touched him, pushed him into the wall, that broke his steering. He tried to carry on, obviously unaware that he'd broken the steering, and then as we came to the left-hander, Mortara was unable to turn left and hit the side of Jake Dennis and pushed themselves both off into the wall. An innocent victim in Jake Dennis's many schemes this season, and this race in particular, this race weekend certainly, where he's decided to try and take out the whole world. Well, he hit 4 different cars this race weekend total, and caused himself and the team a lot of damage, caused loads of other drivers and teams a lot of damage, and ends Mortara's season on a low after what was a very strong and encouraging first race in London. Had Mortara been able to stay in that race, maybe, just maybe, he could have picked up the points needed to keep head apt in the constructors' standings. But as it was, out very early on, and no fault of his own. I've gone for 4. 4 points to Eduardo Mortara to end his season off with, which is one of them. You know, I thought it was a fair score. Didn't see much of him. But yeah, 4 out of 5 for a retirement. I think is fair for Eduardo Mortara. Shame to see his season end like this after he has been such a great driver this season for the Mahindra team. So there we then, guys, those were the runners and riders of the Formula E round number 16 E-Prix. Let me know down in the comments section, did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The updated standings with the scores I have just awarded are on the screen now. There you are, there you have it, everyone. Take a good long hard look at that, because Jean-Eric Vergne comes out ahead and on top of the standings by a measly half a point. Half a point, that is unbelievable. Congratulations, Jean-Eric Vergne, to him. Picks up a Lotterer last week and last race out, I should say. But of course, all the other teams and drivers did as well. Everyone's picked up 1 or 2 this year, and it's meant that it's kind of mitigated the circumstances. Nick Cassidy finishing there with 115 points just behind him. Pascal Wehrlein picks up P3, not too far away on 113. And Ollie Rowland, had he not missed Portland, I think it really proves that he could have been a Cruel Corner champion as well. I mean, let's face it, I scored Kaya Collette 12 points. If I'd add that to that tally, he'd have been well in the lead himself. So yeah, Ollie Rowland misses out on the Cruel Corner title as well as his own chance of the Formula E title by illness, which is a great shame. Just a little bit further back there, Antonio Felix da Costa on 106. Sergio Sette Camara, probably the biggest surprise there with 103, but he has been very solid by the ERT squad this year. Nico Muller makes a hard charge up with 102.5. The later stages of the season have come really good for him. And just outside the 100 mark, Eduardo Mortaro with 98.5. Again, has been a great driver for the Mahindra squad this season. Deserves to finish where he did. Further down the field, a couple of surprises, of course. Most notably the likes of Robin Freitz, Jake Hughes all the way down there, Dan Tinkton with a shocking season. Lucas Di Grassi somehow manages to finish ahead of a couple of cars, despite the fact he got 3 Lotteras as well. Yeah, there's a lot of drivers there that you'd think deserve to be higher up. Jake Dennis having a bit of a shocker. Quite a few places down, but you could see where the split is between himself and his teammate Norman Nato. But really, anyone from Jake Dennis up could have had a mathematical chance of the title going into this final episode. That's how close it all was. And massive thanks, as always, goes out to Dan Bartlett, formerly of Mushy Gaming, for providing me with the scoreboard that you saw on your screen. And, of course, who can forget Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for providing me with the Lotterer of the Week that you all know and love. So that's it, guys. That is the end of the Cruel Corner Championship for 2024. However, it sort of isn't, is it? Because Season 3 will return. Season 11 in Formula E, real life, of course, is back on the 7th of December. And you can be sure that there will be a Season 3 of the Cruel Corner starting then. So I'll see you all later on in the year. I'll keep you all posted. And as well, of course, don't forget I made my predictions at the start of the year, how I felt the Constructors would end. So you've got that video to look forward to in a couple of weeks' time where I go through how right or how wrong I was. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Take care. Appreciate the support with the series and with the channel as a whole, as always. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And as always, much love.